That's like saying what's the difference between fine art and sculpture. I think it's all the same. It's just an extension of you, of your creativity, of who you are. Yeah. And I've met some amazing illustrators who are amazing painters.
I've recently been to a show at Chelsea Space, which is a fantastic kind of contemporary art space, with a really interesting programme that showed album covers and illustration work, and that was seen in that context as a fine art context. I think it's totally about the context. I think that sometimes magazines release kind of pieces of fine art as part of the magazine content. It's become so blurred that there isn't really, if an audience is picking up a magazine, then I guess they're looking for illustration, or if they're going to a gallery, then they're looking for fine art, but what they might come across is completely mixed there.
It wasn't actually me, it was another guy, and he was a printmaker, and he does these amazing one-off prints, but they look just like oil paint. People were raving over them, wanting to buy them, getting really excited, and then they found out they were prints, and they were like, oh, no, I don't want that then if it's not a painting.
I work now in printmaking departments a lot, and there is this kind of weird thing that happens within fine art meetings or something at institutions. It's happened at several I've been at, where the head of fine art, or someone quite sort of influential within the college, will list the departments of fine art and completely miss out printmaking.
Defining an artist is something that has plagued people for generations. I mean, we are described variously as illustrators, fine artists, and I despise that term, street artists, lowbrow artists, highbrow artists. We need to be given a definite school in which we work. It makes it easier for the non-art community to be able to put a handle on things if an artist has been categorised. I think that the vast majority of artists work outside of a category, because at the end of the day what we are doing is producing work that either reflects society or that we just want to do because we want to do it. It's a bad thing for artists to be categorised, but it's a good thing for other people to have labels to be able to describe and compare artists. I think for a lot of people, without artists being categorised, it makes it very, very difficult for them to understand art. And so from that aspect I can see why it's a necessity, even though it's one that I try to avoid. The perceived difference between fine art and illustration, to me, is that an illustrator is seen as somebody who produces, for the vast majority of people's perception, quite clean, crisp work, and their work reflects other people's ideas. A fine artist explores big metaphysical subjects. They explore life and death, the soul of humanity, their own inner turmoil and angst. Frida Kahlo is a great example of this. But at the end of the day, they are illustrating their own experiences, their own desires and their own thoughts. I found the fine art world to be rather pretentious, a little bit up its own arse, not willing to accept non-standard mediums and non-standard expressions, and to be very wary of anybody whose work had an illustrative style to it. I've got a brilliant gallery. It's amazing. Nobody needs to pay to go into it. I can put work up wherever I want without having to clear it with a gallery manager or without having to talk to a curator. I can put my work up there and I can get an honest response from people who don't feel that they need to be pretentious. They don't feel they need to read so much into an image, because it's street art. They're Joe Public. It's not in a gallery setting.
I've been a graffiti artist since I was a young kid, so I generally do refer to myself as a graffiti artist. I did do fine art school, university, which helped me explore that aspect of my work, but I don't think it classifies me as a fine artist. It's valid, like having that training behind me helps me understand it, but I would probably define myself as a graffiti artist, seeing as that is where I started off. I don't think it's necessary for the artists themselves to categorise. I think it might be necessary for Joe Public or the person who's trying to people try and define you and your work more than you need to define your own work. Maybe someone somewhere is helped by thinking I'm this, I'm that, but I don't think they ever would be. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, so much illustration, street art, and graffiti art. I mean, I know a lot of artists that really do just blur those boundaries. I think it's easier to try and discuss people who use illustration as fine art, and then people obviously who use illustration within illustration. Illustration's just, to me, like a more commercial-based industry where you're getting paid for drawing a very aesthetic visual image, whereas fine art, you have to come up with not the bullshit, don't let anyone hear that, but the stuff behind it, the contextualizing and all that. I don't know, it's you have to learn far more about why it's there and what it's about rather than the work itself, like as a visual thing. I mean, fine art's so massive, isn't it? In like more recently, it's very installation-led concept stuff, but I don't see much illustration in that. But the people that use like appropriated illustrative images, that's fine art school for you. In their work, they only use it because they can define it with their words, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I know a lot of fine artists around here, and like there's a little clique of a group of them that I know reasonably well, but I'm in on that group as much as I am on everything else. Yeah. But they always refer to me as, oh, that sort of, you know, graffiti lad, rather than that guy who does a bit of this and a bit of that. So yeah, it is. I am pigeonholed by people.
So as a conclusion, after interviewing all these different artists and going through a whole process of producing a storyboard of my progression, don't know, from kind of not knowing what sort of discipline I am to how I feel about it now, I kind of think that most artists only really find themselves classified by others. I think that mostly it's kind of more for the audience's benefit, for the media's benefit, for people like clients that are hiring you's benefit rather than your own. However, I do think that it is much harder to classify yourself as one particular type of artist now. I think that all the types of art are slowly merging together. There seems to be more groups now rather than strict disciplines. And I think eventually they'll all move together to such an extent that you can't tell the difference between types of art. I think that artists who try and declassify themselves completely inevitably end up creating some new kind of genre from that. And I do still think that there's kind of a hierarchical view that most artists have about disciplines. But I think that's entirely subjective to their own discipline. They're kind of biased towards their own discipline. I don't know whether the merging of disciplines is a good thing or a bad thing, really. I think it's inevitable that as the media saturates us in more and more images, and it's much easier for people to move between disciplines, I think it's inevitable that each area will become more and more influenced by other areas until it's completely indistinguishable. In terms of where I am as an artist, after speaking to loads of different artists about where they think I would be able to work, there doesn't seem to be a general consensus, really. So I've decided to call myself an image maker and just stick with that and see where my work goes and where it's suited best. I'd like to be able to work in loads of different areas, so I think that not restricting myself by calling myself one type of artist is the way to go about that.